This is a 10th anniversary for Maker Faire, so it's a special year for us, and it's a special year for you guys because Maker Faire wouldn't be what it is without all of you guys being here and bringing all of your great stories and projects and everything else that you do. So my name's Mike Senese. I'm the executive editor for Make Magazine. I'm charged with finding incredible stories and projects and all of the things that you see in the magazine and helping shape and tell those stories to everyone. And one of my favorite stories that's been developing over the last few years revolves around autonomous aircraft, UAVs, multicopters, autonomous airplanes, otherwise known as drones. And one of the reasons that I'm really interested in this drones concept is because so much of what we're seeing in the drones world, it comes from our community. It wasn't just a few years ago where the only way you could get a quadcopter was by building it yourself out of wood that you built together in your garage. You'd have to hack apart a Wiimote to get the gyro controllers and sensors out of it and put that in there. Now, with just the rapid pace of technology, we've seen these drones and quadcopters and multicopters move into the world of incredibly powerful, technological consumer electronics, and it's incredible the things that they're doing. But in just 2011, you'd have to build your own. It's only a few years ago. So I'm going to talk about drones and the beneficial aspects of them. It's one of the things that I think is really interesting. Flight, we figured that out a long time ago, but now we've got this flying platform. It's a tool that can be used for a lot of really interesting things and a lot of good things. First, a real quick run through. There's always a discussion whenever we post anything drone related at Make online or do anything in the magazine. There's always some feedback. Why do you guys call it a drone? That's a bad word. And these are multicopters or UAVs, or we want to keep this thing separate from a different world that has militaristic connotations. I feel like I like that word drone. I want the community to take that word and to own it, because it's a great word that really encapsulates a wide range of different types of aerial platforms. You can't say multicopter if you're talking about fixed wing aircraft. You can't say UAV without sounding like you're just some jargony kind of a person. And so when I say drone, I'm talking about, again, the multicopters, the fixed wing aircraft, aerial platforms that have autonomous capabilities, and I even use autonomous to mean some of those sensors that will allow it to stabilize itself in flight, not just autonomous navigation, and provide multiple functions through its onboard sensors and other paraphernalia. So I think this is a great story that I really like to use as a fantastic example of how this aerial platform has been utilized for a really beneficial purpose. Last year, July 2014, there was an 82-year-old hiker. His name was Guillermo. He went out in Fitchburg, Wisconsin for a walk, and he wandered away. And he was gone for a couple of days. The entire town mobilized. This became this town-wide manhunt to try to find Guillermo as he hiked around. There was a guy from Colorado who was on vacation visiting his girlfriend's family, who was from Fitchburg, Wisconsin. This guy was an extreme sports enthusiast. He likes snowboarding. He owns a snowboard company. He likes filming. He hears about the news that the town's out looking for this hitchhiker, and he decides, I'm going to go out and help out too. Drives out to the area where they think he might be. There's a huge, huge open prairie field, and he pulls his, I'm assuming it was, from the photos I saw, Phantom, DJI Phantom out of his trunk, and puts on his FPV gear and starts running a zigzag pattern over this field. At this point, and this is the kind of the morbid part of it, he's looking for a body because it's been 2 or 3 days since Guillermo had gone missing. And many days since they'd been searching for him. 20 minutes in, he finds him. Guillermo's seated on a bench on the far side of this prairie, dazed and confused, but otherwise in good health. So what does he do? He runs over, he finds the guy, brings him back, and naturally takes a picture with him and posts it on Instagram. And the interesting thing to me is that when this picture was captured, it had 172 likes, which I think this should deserve a lot more than just 172 likes on Instagram, because this is a really amazing moment where a hobbyist who has a new tool, a new device, was able to save someone's life. The even more amazing thing is that this wasn't the first time this had happened. A year before that was another incredible incident. Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they found an accident victim. Now this was up in St. Denis, Saskatchewan, which is, for those of you guys who know it, any of you guys heard of St. Denis before? It's way up there, in the middle of a really rural part of Canada. So, late one night, cold night, this driver was making his way through one of the farmland areas on the outskirts, outside of the actual city of St. Denis. He gets in a car accident, wrecks his car, has enough consciousness to call 911, or the Canadian version of 911, and says, "I've been in a car accident, I don't know where I am, and I don't know what I'm doing." It's a snowy night. And he trails off. So they come out and they start trying to find this guy. They find his car, but they don't find him. They see some footsteps out into the snow. It disappears off into the snowy darkness. So they mobilize themselves again with the search and rescue efforts. They bring the firefighters out there. They're combing through the night, through all of the snow, and they get another phone call from this missing person, saying, "I'm confused. I'm in the snow somewhere. I've lost my shoes and socks and my jacket." And then he hangs up, and they were able to pinpoint from that a little bit more of his location, but not clearly where it was, but just enough that they could start searching, or refocusing their efforts to a new location. And at that point, one of the forensics experts says, "Hey, you know what, I've got my multi-copter rig. It's got a thermal camera on it. It's a FLIR type camera. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with that, it looks like predator vision, so you can see heat signatures." And he said, let's fly this up to see what we can do. At this point now, it's like 3 in the morning. So, imagine this guy, he's been out in the snow without his shoes, without his socks, without his jacket for about 3 hours. So I'm gonna play this video, because this is a great thing. They actually captured the video of what happened here. And let's see if there's a little bit of a lead up here. So here's the video from this guy's rig as he's flying around. And you'll see right there, that's where they found they triangulated the cell phone call to be coming from. And then right here, look at this. That red arrow pointing at that white dot. That's that missing driver. They find him almost instantly by finding the heat source. And they hike out to where he is. And what we're seeing there, you've got the infrared thermal vision version of this. He's curled up in the snow at the base of a tree, along a ridge of trees. There's no way that they could have found this guy until sunlight. And at that point, there's no way. You can see here come the firefighters, the mounted police, as they're making their way towards him. There's no way that this guy would have survived through the night, but they wouldn't have even been able to get to him until the next morning. So what we're looking at here is an incredible situation where this technology, this flying platform, this combination of technology aspects, was able to get into a position where they were able to find and save this man's life. And in fact, that's exactly the quote that the official quote that was put out from the team as they announced this after the rescue happened. Now, another really interesting application that we're starting to see people utilize these flying platforms for much more frequently. Wildlife habitats. This is for conservation, endangered species management. So here we've got the Wildlife Conservation Society. They've been working with the Belize Fisheries Department, trying to find illegal fishing activities in the waterways. Those guys who know Belize, it has some of the most beautiful coral reefs and most beautiful water systems in any part of the planet. But there's a tremendous amount of illegal activity in the fishing sense there. So really important for them for conservation purposes, for all purposes you could imagine, to try to keep that to a minimum. So here's an area that most people would think of as a very rural area. Finding ways to incorporate new tools, highly technical tools, to do the management that the surveillance that otherwise would cost thousands and thousands of dollars and would require really skilled pilots and lots of aircraft upkeep for using actual aircraft. Instead, you can use these small, easy to fly, self-flying, easy to maintain aircraft. Now this right here, let's take a quick peek. There's a video clip that Nat Geo did on, I'm going to skip forward a little bit. And I don't think I've got audio on this one, unless you guys want to come crowd around my laptop. So this is some of the orangutan habitat observations that have been happening out in different parts of Africa. So this group's putting together a fixed-wing aircraft that's doing the same thing. It's running these fixed courses, moving back and forth over an area that has endangered orangutans, trying to find disruptions, trying to look for poachers, for logging activity, and it's doing this autonomously. In fact, there's a scene that will come up here in a moment where as the aircraft is making its way back and forth, you can see the team, they talk about how they set it up, they set up to run its route, and they go and they get their coffee. Meanwhile, this thing is snapping photos. It stitches the photos together automatically. It comes back, and they can scan through, and they can do really close-up investigation of these areas and look for any of these discrepancies, any activity, illegal activities that are happening. And at this point right now, there's numerous groups that are starting to utilize these technologies in these locations. In fact, David Lang, who was just on stage before me, who's doing OpenROV, also is running the openexplorer.com website, and you can read a lot of really interesting stories of some of the people who are actually doing these activities on, journaling the activities on openexplorer.com.
So you're going to just switch, you're going to keep both programs open and just switch?
Yeah, they're minimized.
So this next slide,
One thing we can do is we can have video.
just a couple months ago, I had the pleasure to meet Randy J. Braun, who is a phenomenal photographer and is now working with DJI. He's been traveling the globe for the last 9 months, going from country to country, taking great photos, but also having these incredible immersive experiences. And this one right here was from his recent trip to Tanzania. He went to teach villagers how to use quadcopters to keep the elephant populations, the wild elephant populations, from coming into the villagers' farmland areas and eating and destroying their farms. This is a big problem in these regions. The elephants come in from the jungles and they destroy the agriculture. And the way that traditionally, that the villagers respond to this is they shoot and kill the elephants, which is something I can imagine that you guys understand is a pretty bad solution. Interesting thing about elephants is they hate swarms of bees. And for those of you guys who've flown a drone, you know that it sounds exactly like an angry swarm of bees. So what he's doing is he's going out there with this gear, and he's showing the villagers that with these quadcopters, as the elephants approach, they can use these quadcopters to gently maneuver them and nudge them back into the jungle away from the agricultural area so that their farmlands are protected, the elephants don't have to be shot and killed, and it creates a much more humane and positive result. One of the other things that I love is this photo right here, just because those of you guys who've been playing around with the FPV stuff, this is such a great combination of a high technology with a really completely different culture than where you're seeing it being utilized most of the time. So beyond the wildlife conservation efforts, disaster relief and mapping, this is another area where things are really growing and growing quickly. And these are just a few headlines I grabbed off of Google News search looking for drones and disaster relief, and you can see the various different places that people are starting to talk about using drones. I mean, one of the most recent ones, obviously, there was this really devastating earthquake in Nepal just a couple weeks ago, and the result of how many people ended up mobilizing to get to Nepal using these their drone and fixed-wing aircraft to do the disaster surveillance, and the help that has provided has been just phenomenal. So one of the things I actually really find really interesting, Philip Grossman he's a senior director for media technology strategy. He's with the Weather Channel. Make sure I get that right there. He has made multiple trips out to Chernobyl, and for those of you guys, that grew up through the Chernobyl experience, you know that you don't probably want to go there, but he's able to take his aircraft and he can fly into some of the most undesirable parts of that area. And he's been taking these incredible photos just to show images of the landscape of what's left in that region. The abandoned theme parks. There's the reactor that got messed up back in 1986 as it overheated. Also, May 2013, Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. This was also a really, really devastating typhoon. And this, kind of like what's happening in Nepal right now, shows some of the ways that after something that's so incredibly devastating, the region becomes so dangerous to try to navigate safely. It's hard to get in there by vehicle. It's hard to fly planes or helicopters in there, but jumping forward here. Press the play button here. This footage here, it's disturbing, but there's this a beauty to it in the sense that we can do this now, flying through something like this and quickly being able to search through and look for, are there survivors that need to be rescued? What is the extent of the devastation that's happened? And that's a great thing. We couldn't do this 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You couldn't make your way through a building like this. I like watching this, and it just gives this perspective of a really horribly devastated region, but sort of the hope that as these technologies continue to grow, we're able to do some really incredible and really beneficial things with them. Thanks. And I'll skip forward a little bit on this one here, because this shot right here, as he pulls out, this right here, this is the one that I love. He pulls out, and you can see like the extent. This was a horrible typhoon. There were parts of the Philippines that 2 years later don't look much better than this still. One of the most recent ones, this is happening right now. It's called Syria Airlift Project. There's a group, they're based in Stanford, and they are working on a project where they're trying to fly humanitarian relief into war-torn parts of Syria. You can't fly a plane into Syria right now, not into some of these bad parts, because it'll be shot down. Cargo planes that have the food and the equipment that's needed for relief, they just can't get there. So this guy from Stanford realized this is a pretty bad problem right now. But what if we, instead of trying to fly one giant cargo plane, we flew 1,000 tiny cargo planes? So he started building a prototype of a fixed-wing aircraft that had a 100-kilometer range, and at this point has I think just over 2-pound airlift capacity. It's got 3D robotics, autopilots, hardware on it, and it's set to run a course where it flies into some of the more devastated parts of Syria, right from the border. So it would be launched from the Turkish border, flying into Syria, make the route over the designated drop zone, drop its cargo, food, relief, and then make its return flight where it could then be recharged and refilled and sent back out. Now there's an app that is being developed alongside this that allows this swarm to fly slightly different routes every time, so that if whoever it is that would not want something like this to be happening saw one of these drones making its approach, the next one would be on a slightly different route, wouldn't be able to be shot down as easily and taken out. And one of the other things that he's putting in place with this is he understands that, you know, if these were captured by the wrong people, they might be able to be used for some more nefarious purposes. So the hardware has been modified so that if it touches down on the ground anywhere except for where it lifted off from, it'll self-destruct. It has a burnout circuit in it, and it will burn itself out. So if this does land somewhere in the war area, it won't be able to be used again, which I think is a really clever solution to something that obviously is, could be a concern for a lot of people. So one of the last ones that is also we're seeing a lot, and this one's not as much of a brand new story, but it's still one of the ones it's growing and developing, is in the filmmaking area. There's a really interesting researcher, also from Stanford, Niels Jobert, who is working on some of the pushing the envelope of what the software aspects of drones is capable of, really focusing on that filmmaking element. And so if you imagine when you make a 3D game or a 3D movie, you have a virtual camera, you place it in space inside the 3D environment, and you create sort of a flight path for it, where the angles are, how it moves. Any of these, any video games, any animated movies you've seen, they all have this built into it. Even a lot of the non-animated movies, these major features, Lord of the Rings. And what Niels is doing is, he had this realization that this is great in the 3D environment, but we're at the point now where we have a tool that can do that same thing. So could I create and program something that functions the same way using Maya or one of these other 3D tools, and model that path, but then have the drone actually fly and film that for me? So he's getting really close to that right now. He's shown some great functions of it, but I didn't end up building that one into this slideshow, so I'm going to have to show you guys that one later. This one, though, however, is from Robert McIntosh, and this is a slightly older video that is one of my favorite ones of all. So I'm going to let this play and just watch this with you guys. I wish I had sound, because there's great sweeping sound, audio soundscape for this one. But this is one of the first ones that really caught my eye and made me realize this is something that changes everything when you think of what we can do in the film world. Oh yeah, let's try that. I'll put the mic by the computer. That's a great idea. Is it working? It's called Santa Monica. And he continues to sweep around and fly around. And so what Niels is doing is largely this exact same thing, but he would map that course first using a 3D capture of a Google Earth version of that scenario. I don't know if he'd be able to, off of Google Earth, navigate and thread the needle through the Ferris wheel like that, but it's incredible stuff, and we're really seeing some big shifts in the way that these things are happening now. So I want to say thanks for watching this. It's an incredible topic that we love talking about. We've done a couple magazines about it, and I love, I just love where this is going. I think it's such an interesting piece of the maker story. And I want to answer questions, but I also have to run. I've got another presentation that I've got over on the DIY stage over in the other corner there. So if you guys want to talk some more about this and you want to meet me after that one, which is that'll wrap up 4:30ish, then I'm happy to go over there. Otherwise, thank you for watching. I'm Mike Senese, and have a great Maker Faire.